The world didn't see me, and I didn't expect it to. In a city of 8 million, I was the ghost of an omega, scentless and invisible, slipping through New York's crowded streets like a shadow no one bothered to notice. Until he looked at me, and everything I thought I knew about myself unraveled. My name is Eli Carter, 24, a barista at a cramped Brooklyn cafe where the espresso machine hissed louder than my thoughts. Omegas are supposed to have a scent sweet, floral, something that calls to alphas like a siren's song. It's biology, they say, the thing that defines us in this world of primal instincts layered beneath modern skyscrapers. But I was born without one. No fragrance, no pull, no place in the hierarchy that governed every interaction. My parents, both betas, didn't know what to make of me. Doctors called it a rare condition, scentless omega syndrome, and handed me pamphlets about living a normal life. Normal meant invisible. Normal meant alone. I'd accepted it, or so I thought, until that humid August evening when Lucas Kane walked into my cafe. The bell above the door chimed, and I looked up from wiping the counter to see him, a man who carried himself like he owned the air around him. 6'2", with broad shoulders and eyes like a storm over the Atlantic. He was every inch an alpha. His scent hit me first, cedarwood and smoke, sharp enough to cut through the coffee aroma. Customers turned, drawn to him instinctively, but his gaze locked onto me. Not the pretty beta waitress, not the other omegas lingering by the window. Me. You're Eli, right? His voice was low, steady, like he already knew the answer. I froze, my rag dripping onto the counter. How did he know my name? I'd never seen him before, but something about him felt inevitable. Like a song you swear you've heard but can't place. Yeah, I stammered, pushing my glasses up my nose. Do I know you? He smiled, a half curve that made my chest tighten. Not yet. But you will. That was the moment my life split into before and after. Lucas wasn't just an alpha. He was a catalyst, a spark that ignited something dormant inside me. I didn't know it then, but he'd awakened parts of me I'd buried so deep I thought they didn't exist. And with that awakening would come a storm love, fear, secrets, and a truth that could either save me or break me. The cafe was my sanctuary, a place where I could hide behind routine. Pour, steam, serve, repeat. I liked the rhythm, the way it kept my mind from wandering to the ache of being different. That night, though, Lucas disrupted everything. He ordered a black coffee, no sugar, and sat at a corner table, his eyes flicking to me every few minutes. I tried to ignore him, but my hands shook as I frothed milk, spilling foam onto the counter. Careful there, Sarah, my coworker, teased. You're acting like you've seen a ghost. Maybe I have, I muttered, glancing at Lucas. He was reading a book, something old with a cracked spine, but his attention wasn't on the pages. It was on me. I felt it like a weight, heavy and warm, stirring something unfamiliar in my chest. When closing time came, I was alone, mopping the floor, the city's hum filtering through the open window. Lucas lingered, the last customer, his coffee long gone. I should have asked him to leave, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "You're still here." He closed his book and leaned forward, elbows on the table. I'm waiting. For what? For you to ask me why I'm here. I laughed, nervous, the mop handle slick in my hands. Okay, why are you here? He stood, crossing the room in 3 strides, stopping just close enough for his scent to wrap around me again. Because you're different, Eli. And I think you know it. My breath caught. Different. The word I'd hated my whole life. thrown back at me like a challenge. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but something in his eyes stopped me. They weren't just blue. They were alive, searching, like he saw something I couldn't. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, turning away to hide the flush creeping up my neck. You will, he said again, softer this time. He left a 20 on the counter way too much for a coffee and walked out into the night, leaving me with a racing heart and questions I wasn't ready to answer. The next week was a blur of sleepless nights and stolen glances. Lucas came back every evening, always at the same time, always ordering the same coffee. He didn't push, didn't ask questions, but his presence was a constant hum in my veins. I started noticing things about myself I hadn't before. My skin felt warmer, my senses sharper. Once, when his hand brushed mine as I handed him his cup, a jolt ran through me, like static but deeper, primal. I told myself it was nothing, but the lie felt thin. One night, as I locked up, he was waiting outside, leaning against a lamppost. The city glowed behind him, all neon and noise, but he was the only thing I saw. Walk with me, he said. Not a question, but not a command either. I should have said no. I didn't. We wandered through Brooklyn, past graffiti-covered walls and bodegas, the air thick with summer heat. He asked about my life, simple things, like where I grew up, Queens, what I studied, art history, before I dropped out. Why I stayed in the city, I didn't have an answer. I asked about him, and he gave me fragments. He was 26, a freelance journalist, born in Chicago but drawn to New York for its chaos. He didn't talk about being an alpha, but I felt it in every word, every glance. Why me? I asked finally, stopping under a flickering streetlight. I'm nobody. I'm scentless. He stepped closer, his voice low. You're not nobody, Eli. And you're not scentless. Not to me. My heart pounded. That's impossible. Is it? He tilted his head, studying me. You've never felt it. The pull. The way the air changes when we're close. I wanted to deny it, but I couldn't. Something was shifting inside me, something I didn't understand. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure I wanted to stay invisible. The days that followed were a tightrope walk between fear and fascination. Lucas had planted a seed, and it was growing, twisting through my thoughts like ivy. Every time I saw him, the world felt sharper, more alive, but also more dangerous. I wasn't ready for what he was suggesting, that I wasn't what I'd always believed, that something inside me was waking up. But the truth was undeniable. My body was reacting to him in ways I'd never experienced. A warmth in my chest, a quickening pulse, a faint sweetness in the air I couldn't explain. I started avoiding him. It was easier to hide behind the counter, to bury myself in work, than to face whatever this was. But Lucas wasn't the type to give up. He'd show up at the cafe, his presence pulling at me like gravity, and I'd catch myself watching him, his hands as he turned a page, the way his jaw tightened when he was deep in thought. I hated how much I noticed, how much I wanted to notice. One evening, I slipped out the back door to avoid him, only to find him waiting in the alley, leaning against a brick wall. The city's pulse thrummed around us, distant sirens and laughter mixing with the hum of traffic. He didn't look surprised to see me, just patient. You can't keep running, Eli, he said, his voice soft but firm. I'm not running, I lied, shoving my hands into my pockets. I don't know what you want from me. He stepped closer, his scent wrapping around me again, cedar and smoke, grounding and dizzying all at once. I want you to stop hiding. From me. From yourself. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You don't know me, Lucas, You don't know what it's like to be this. I gestured at myself, at the emptiness I'd carried my whole life. I'm broken. I don't have what omegas are supposed to have. You're not broken, he said, his voice fierce now. You're just different. And I see you, Eli. I feel you. His words hit like a punch. No one had ever said they felt me. No one had ever looked at me like I was more than a shadow. But Lucas did, and it terrified me as much as it thrilled me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my tiny apartment, the city's glow seeping through my blinds, and thought about what he'd said. I feel you. What did that mean? I'd spent my life believing I was invisible, untouchable, but Lucas saw something I couldn't. I pressed my face into my pillow, trying to block out the memory of his scent, but it was there, lingering in my senses like a ghost. The next day, I broke. I texted him his number was on a napkin he'd left on the counter, a move so bold it made my stomach flip. Meet me at Prospect Park. 7 p.m. I didn't know why I chose the park, only that I needed space, somewhere I could breathe without the city pressing in. He was there when I arrived, sitting on a bench by the lake, the water reflecting the last of the sunset. He didn't say anything as I sat beside him, just waited, giving me room to speak. I don't understand what's happening to me, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I've never felt like this. It's like something's waking up, and I don't know if I want it to. He turned to me, his eyes soft but intense. It's your scent, Eli. It's faint, but it's there. I noticed it the first day I saw you. I shook my head. That's impossible. I've been tested. I'm scentless. Tests can be wrong, he said. Or maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the one who brings it out. I wanted to laugh, to call it ridiculous, but the air between us felt different. Charged. Alive. I could smell it now, a faint sweetness, like honeysuckle, coming from me. It was impossible, but it was real. What does it mean? I asked, my voice trembling. It means you're not what they told you, Lucas said. It means you're more. We started spending more time together, stolen moments between my shifts and his deadlines. Walks through the city, late-night talks in diners, moments where the world seemed to shrink to just us. I learned more about him, his childhood in Chicago, his estranged alpha father, his drive to uncover stories that mattered. He was passionate, relentless, but with me, he was gentle, careful, like he knew how fragile this new version of me was. But it wasn't all light. The more time we spent together, the stronger my scent became, and with it came attention I wasn't ready for. Other alphas in the cafe started noticing me, their eyes lingering too long, their sense sharpening with interest. I'd spent my life invisible, and now I was a beacon, and I didn't know how to handle it. One night, as we walked through the East Village, a group of alphas passed us, their laughter cutting off as they caught my scent. One of them, tall and broad, stepped too close, his eyes narrowing. Didn't know they made omegas like you, he said, his voice dripping with something that made my skin crawl. Lucas stepped between us, his posture rigid, his scent spiking with warning. Back off, he said, low and dangerous. The other alpha smirked, but didn't push. They moved on, but the encounter left me shaking. Lucas took my hand, his grip steady. You okay? No, I admitted. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be this. He pulled me into a quiet alley, his hands framing my face. You don't have to do it alone, he said. I'm here. And in that moment, under the flickering neon of a dive bar sign, I believed him. The sweetness of my scent grew stronger, a quiet rebellion against the life I'd known. It was exhilarating and terrifying, like standing on the edge of a cliff with no idea what lay below. Lucas was my anchor, but even he couldn't shield me from the storm brewing inside and around me. I started noticing changes beyond my scent. My senses were sharper, colors brighter, sounds clearer, Lucas's touch electric. At work, I caught myself reacting to customers in ways I never had. An alpha's glance would make my pulse race, not with attraction, but with instinct. A primal awareness I didn't understand. I hated it. I'd spent my life building walls, and now they were crumbling, leaving me exposed. Lucas noticed too. One evening, as we sat on the fire escape of my apartment, the city sprawling below us, he took my hand. "You're changing," he said, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "It's not just your scent. It's you." "I don't want to change," I said, pulling my hand away. I was fine before. Invisible, but fine. "Were you?" His voice was gentle, but the question cut deep. "You told me you felt like a ghost." "That's not fine, Eli." I looked away, the city lights blurring as my eyes stung. He was right, but admitting it meant letting go of the safety I'd clung to. Being scentless had been my shield, my excuse for staying small. Now, with Lucas, I was becoming something else, and I didn't know if I was ready. The first sign of trouble came a week later. I was closing the cafe, alone again, when a man walked in just before lockup. He was older, maybe 40, with a sharp suit and a sharper scent, pine and steel. Aggressive. He didn't order anything, just stood by the counter, watching me. "You're new," he said, his voice smooth but cold. "Didn't know this place had an Omega like you." I gripped the rag in my hand, my heart pounding. "We're closed," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't move. "You're not like the others. Your scent, it's unique." I backed toward the counter, my instincts screaming to run. Before I could, the door chimed, and Lucas was there, his presence filling the room. "Everything okay, Eli?" The man's eyes flicked to Lucas, sizing him up. For a moment, the air was thick with tension, their scents clashing like a storm. Then the man smiled, thin and predatory, and left without a word. Lucas crossed the room in an instant, his hands on my shoulders. "You okay?" I nodded, but I wasn't. The man's words lingered, a reminder that my newfound scent wasn't just a gift, it was a target. Lucas insisted on walking me home after that, and I didn't argue. But the incident wasn't isolated. Over the next few days, I noticed more alphas lingering near the cafe, their eyes following me, their scents heavy with curiosity or worse. I told myself it was nothing, but the unease grew, a knot in my stomach that wouldn't loosen. One night, Lucas took me to a quiet jazz bar in Harlem, a place he said always calmed him down. The music was soft, the lights low, and for a few hours, I forgot the world outside. We sat in a corner booth, his arm around me, and I let myself lean into him, his warmth seeping into my skin. "Tell me about it," he said, his voice barely audible over the saxophone. "What it's like, feeling this for the first time." I hesitated, then let the words spill out. "It's like waking up in a body that's not yours. Everything's louder, brighter, heavier. I can feel you, Lucas, all the time, even when you're not here. It's overwhelming." He smiled, his fingers tracing circles on my shoulder. "That's what it's supposed to feel like. You're not broken, Eli. You're alive." I wanted to believe him, but the fear was still there, a shadow at the edge of every moment. And it wasn't just the alphas watching me. There was something else, something I couldn't name. a sense that this awakening was leading me towards something bigger and more dangerous than I could imagine. The city felt different now, like it was watching me as closely as I was watching it. My scent was no longer a whisper, but a song. Soft, but undeniable, drawing attention I didn't want. Lucas was my refuge, but even he couldn't stop the world from closing in. We started spending more time at his apartment, a small loft in Williamsburg with exposed brick walls and books stacked on every surface. It was messy, lived in, and it smelled like himstar wood and ink, a scent that grounded me even as it set my nerves alight. One night, as rain battered the windows, we sat on his couch, a movie playing in the background. Forgotten. "Tell me something real," I said, my head resting on his shoulder. "Something you don't tell anyone." He was quiet for a moment, his fingers still in my hair. Then he said, "I ran away from home when I was 16. My dad, he was an alpha, old school, thought I should be like him. Dominate, control, all that bullshit. I hated it. I came here to be someone else." I looked up at him, surprised. "You don't seem like you're running from anything." He laughed, soft and bitter. "I'm good at pretending. But you, Eli, you make me want to stop pretending." His words hung between us, heavy with meaning. I kissed him then, tentative at first, then deeper, like I was chasing the truth in his taste. It was my first real kiss, and it felt like falling and flying at once. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer, and for a moment, the world was just us. No fear, no questions. But the world doesn't stay small forever. The next morning, I found a note slipped under the cafe door, handwritten in sharp, angular letters. "You can't hide what you are." No signature, no explanation, just those words, cold and final. I showed it to Lucas, and his face darkened. "We need to be careful," he said, his voice tight. "Someone's watching you." The note was just the beginning. Over the next week, I started noticing things: a man in a dark coat lingering across the street, a car that seemed to follow me home, a phone call with no one on the other end. Lucas was on edge, his journalist instincts kicking in. He started digging, asking questions about local alpha networks, underground groups that monitored omegas like me. I didn't want to believe it was real, but the fear was growing, a weight I couldn't shake. One night, as we walked through Central Park, Lucas stopped suddenly, his hand tightening around mine. "Don't look back," he whispered. "Someone's following us." My heart raced, but I kept walking, my eyes fixed on the path ahead. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "We lose them," he said, pulling me toward a crowded plaza. We wove through tourists and street performers, his grip never faltering, until we slipped into a subway station. By the time we surfaced in Brooklyn, the feeling of being watched was gone, but the fear stayed. "Who are they?" I asked, my voice shaking as we sat in a diner, the neon sign buzzing above us. "I don't know yet," Lucas said, his jaw tight. "But I'm going to find out." That night, in his apartment, he showed me what he'd found: a series of articles he'd written about alpha-omega dynamics, about groups that operated in the shadows, enforcing old hierarchies. "They call themselves the Order," he said. "They believe omegas like you, ones who don't fit the mold, are a threat to their system." A threat? I laughed, incredulous. "I'm nobody." "You're not nobody," he said, his voice fierce. "You're an omega with a scent that's unique, powerful. They're scared of what you could mean." I didn't want to be a symbol, a threat, anything. I just wanted to be with Lucas, to feel safe. But the world was bigger than us, and it was closing in fast. The fear became a constant companion, a shadow that followed me through the city's streets. Lucas was relentless, digging deeper into the order, but every answer came with more questions. Who were they? Why me? And why now, when my scent was only just awakening? I tried to hold on to normalcy, but it was slipping away. At the cafe, I was jumpy, dropping cups, mishearing orders. Sarah noticed, pulling me aside one day. Eli, what's going on? You're not yourself. I wanted to tell her, but how could I explain? That I was becoming something I didn't understand. That I was being watched, hunted, because of it. Instead, I forced a smile. Just tired. She didn't buy it, but she let it go. I wished I could. Lucas's apartment became our safe haven, a place where the world couldn't touch us. One night, as we lay in bed, his arms around me, I traced the lines of his face in the dark. What if we just left? I whispered. Ran away. Somewhere they can't find us. He kissed my forehead, his breath warm against my skin. We can't run forever, Eli. And I won't let them take you from me. His words were a promise, but they couldn't erase the dread pooling in my stomach. The next morning, he showed me a file he'd compiled: names, dates, locations tied to the order. They were powerful, connected, operating in the shadows of the city's elite. And they were watching Omegas like me, ones who didn't fit, who challenged their rigid rules. You're not just an Omega, Lucas said, his voice steady. You're proof their system is flawed. That's why they're scared. I didn't feel like proof of anything. I felt small, exposed, a target in a game I didn't understand. But Lucas's belief in me was a lifeline, and I clung to it. The breaking point came on a rainy night in September. I was walking home from the cafe, Lucas at my side, when a black SUV pulled up beside us. Two men stepped out, their scents sharp and aggressive, alphas in every sense. One of them, the older man from the cafe, smiled that same cold smile. Eli Carter, he said. We need to talk. Lucas stepped in front of me, his body tense. He's not going anywhere with you. The man's smile didn't falter. This isn't your fight, Kane. Walk away. But Lucas didn't. He grabbed my hand, and we ran, the rain soaking us as we darted through alleys and side streets. My lungs burned, my heart pounding, but Lucas never let go. We didn't stop until we reached his apartment, the door locked behind us. They know my name, I said, my voice shaking. They know me. Lucas pulled me into his arms, his scent grounding me. I won't let them hurt you, he said. I promise. But promises, I was learning, were fragile things. The apartment felt smaller after that night, like the walls were closing in. Lucas was on his laptop constantly, chasing leads, contacting sources, trying to find a way to keep us safe. I wanted to help, but I felt useless, a liability. My scent, the thing that had drawn Lucas to me, was now a beacon for danger. I started having nightmares: faceless men in dark coats, their scents choking me, Lucas's voice calling my name but fading into the distance. I'd wake up gasping, his arms around me, his voice soothing. I'm here, he'd say. I'm not going anywhere. But the fear was relentless, and it wasn't just about me anymore. Lucas was putting himself at risk, digging into things that could get him hurt or worse. I couldn't bear the thought of him paying for my existence. One afternoon, he got a call from a source, someone who claimed to have information about the order. We met them in a crowded diner in Midtown, the kind of place where no one looked twice at anyone else. The source was a beta, a nervous woman in her 30s named Clara, who kept glancing over her shoulder. They're old money, she said, her voice low. They've been controlling alpha-omega dynamics for decades, keeping things the way they want. Omegas like you. Aliens who don't fit their ruleless theory, a threat to their power. Why me? I asked, my voice barely audible over the diner's noise. Your scent, she said. It's not just unique. It's disruptive. It's drawing alphas who aren't supposed to notice you. It's breaking their system. Lucas leaned forward, his eyes sharp. What do they want with him? Clara hesitated. They want to study you, control you, or, if they can't, eliminate you. The words hit like a blow. Lucas's hand found mine under the table, his grip tight. That's not happening, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Clara slid a USB drive across the table. This has names, locations, some of their plans. Be careful. They're watching. That night, Lucas plugged the drive into his laptop, and we read through the files. It was worse than we'd thought. The Order wasn't just a group of alphas. It was a network, with ties to politicians, CEOs, even law enforcement. They saw Omegas like me as anomalies, threats to a system they'd built to maintain control. My scent, my existence, was a crack in their foundation. We need to go public, Lucas said, his voice firm. Expose them. It's the only way to keep you safe. I shook my head, panic rising. If we do that, they'll come for us. For you. He cupped my face, his eyes fierce. I don't care about me, Eli. I care about you. I kissed him then, desperate, like I could hold on to him through sheer will. But the fear was there, a shadow we couldn't outrun. The decision to go public wasn't easy. Lucas spent days drafting an article, pulling together everything we'd learned the Order's history, their influence, their obsession with controlling Omegas like me. I watched him work, his focus a lifeline in the chaos. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. We decided to publish through an independent outlet, one Lucas trusted. The night before the article went live, we stayed up, the city's glow filtering through his curtains. I lay in his arms, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. What if this doesn't work? I asked, my voice small. It will, he said, his voice steady. It has to. But I saw the doubt in his eyes, the same fear I felt. We were taking on something bigger than us, something that could crush us. But we had no choice. If we didn't fight, they'd win. The article dropped at midnight, and the world exploded. Lucas's phone buzzed with notifications, reporters, activists, even threats. The Order was powerful, but they weren't untouchable, and the public's reaction was swift. Protests formed outside their known offices. Social media lit up with demands for accountability. For the first time, I felt like we might actually win. But the Order didn't stay quiet. 2 days later, they came for us. We were in Lucas's apartment when the door burst open. 3 alphas in dark suits, their scents overwhelming. Lucas fought, but they were stronger, faster. I screamed as they dragged him away, his eyes locked on mine, promising he'd come back. They took me to a sterile facility outside the city. I was strapped to a table, a man in a white coat studying me like I was a specimen. Your scent is fascinating, he said, his voice clinical. We've never seen anything like it. I didn't answer, my mind racing with thoughts of Lucas. Was he okay? Would I ever see him again? The fear was suffocating, but so was the anger. They'd taken everything from Mimi's safety, my love, my sense of self. I wouldn't let them take more. I don't know how I did it, but I broke free. Maybe it was my scent, stronger now, disorienting the guards. Maybe it was sheer desperation. I ran, the facility's alarms blaring, my heart pounding as I stumbled into the night. I didn't know where I was, but I knew I had to find Lucas. The city was a maze, but I navigated it with a single purpose: find Lucas. I stole a phone from a gas station, my hands shaking as I called Clara. She was frantic, but gave me an address: a safe house in Queens where Lucas might be. I ran, my scent a beacon I couldn't hide, drawing stares and whispers as I passed. The safe house was a rundown brownstone, and Lucas was there, bruised but alive. I threw my arms around him, tears streaming down my face. "I thought I lost you," I whispered. "Never," he said, his voice rough but warm. "I told you, I'm not going anywhere." Clara had rallied other Semegas, betas, even some alphas who'd turned against the order. They'd been watching the article's impact, organizing, fighting back. My scent, my existence, had become a symbol, a rallying cry for those who'd been silenced. The final confrontation came a week later. The order's leaders were exposed, their facilities raided, their power crumbling under public scrutiny. Lucas and I stood together at a rally in Central Park. Thousands gathered, chanting for change. I looked at him, his hand in mine, and felt something new: not just fear or love, but hope. I was a scentless Omega my whole life, I said to the crowd, my voice shaking but strong. Until one alpha awakened everything in me. Not just my scent, but my courage, my heart, my place in this world. The crowd roared, but Lucas's eyes were all I saw. He pulled me close, his lips brushing my ear. "You're everything," he whispered. We didn't win every battle. The order's shadow lingered, and there were still those who saw me as a threat. But I wasn't alone anymore. Lucas and I built a life together. Not perfect, but ours. My scent, once a curse, became my strength, a reminder that I was more than what I'd been told. In the end, I learned that love isn't just a feeling, it's a fight, a choice, a promise to stand together against the world. And with Lucas by my side, I was ready for whatever came next.